Okay, one of the first things I want to talk about here is panning. Now, panning is an audio term that refers to whether the audio is coming through the left speaker or the right speaker, and we can control that, right? Just like in your car, you can pan left, right, and so you hear it on the left side of the car or the right side of the car. You can do the same thing in Adobe, and I noticed with some of your exports for the very first project, a lot of your audio was panned left. Um, this, I'm sure, is how it came in because of some settings on the particular computer you were on. And as you can see from mine, if you look at the audio meter here,
Of course you haven't. I haven't told you yet.
both the left and right meter are bouncing at the same level.
So Daniel,
Because I'm panned center, so this track is not to be heard on the left or the right side. Now, we want in video editing, we want everything to be panned. Maybe down, way down the road when you're getting more advanced into sound design and you have some kind of like fire truck driving by and you want to pan it so it goes from like right to left through your ears, then you want to get into panning. But in general, most sound effects and certainly all dialogue and music, you really want to be centered. So how can we control that? Well, let me show you something we can do here that I believe we did last lecture, but just let me refresh here. If we double click on a clip, oh, sorry, it saved at the same moment. So if I'm in my timeline here, right, I double click on a clip, look over here at the source monitor, watch what happens. Okay, so up to this point, the source monitor has only really been showing us clips from our project window, right? There's another thing that the source monitor can do, and that is load in specific clips from the sequence. So when I'm loading clips from over here, remember, I'm loading this clip and then I'm going to cut that in here, and this clip remains unchanged. But when I load a clip up from the sequence, I'm actually going to modify this exact clip in my timeline. And there's a lot of cool things we can do here, and they are located under this tab called Effect Controls. Now, these top controls for motion we're going to get into later. They're very fun, but we'll get into them later. So I'm just going to spin it up so you don't see them. Here, I can control the audio of this clip, which we learned how to do this down here with keyframes, which is the better way to do it. But you'll notice as I do this, look at the bar over here. See, it dropped down, and I'm going to undo that. It'll go back up. So that's controlling my audio. But what I want us to look at here is panning. So my panning is set to 0. But let's see if I grab it and I push it all the way. I'm dragging it to the left is what I'm doing. And now look at my audio meter.
Of course you haven't. I haven't
right?
told
I'm only getting it
So-
through the left speaker. And if you notice this is happening and you're hearing this, you want to come in here and you want to set this to 0. Okay, and you want to pan it to the center. Another issue that we've discussed before, I just wanted to show you a good example of the importance of only using the single track that has the proper microphone with your video clips. So remember, when we're recording with our cameras, there are 2 channels of audio. There's picture, and then there's 2 channels of audio. And we're going to plug our microphone into channel 1, where we're going to get great audio. And then generally channel 2 is sometimes going to be blank, like it was for this footage that we use today. Or in some cases, it's going to be recording the camera microphone that's built onto the camera and isn't giving us as good a sound quality. So here's a clip I just found online that gives us a nice example of this. So listen to this.
Did a simulated disaster. They had a bunch of people in refugee tentage, and they just tried to sort of run a disaster and observe what was going on, learn from the experience.
Hear all that wind? That's not very well recorded. Now, one of these tracks is the proper microphone. Another track is the camera microphone. And the proper microphone has a wind screen, so it's blocking out that wind noise. The other does not. Now, even if we just look at the waveforms here, I can sort of guess that this one has a lot more wavy stuff down here below. That is a good indication that there's noise here. This one is much more spiky, and when it gets quiet, it actually gets quiet. So I'm guessing this is going to be the good track and this is the bad one. But let's check by using mute. Okay, so I'm going to start at the beginning of the clip. I'm going to mute this track so we don't hear it, and we'll just listen to track 1.
Where they did a simulated disaster. They had a bunch of people in refugee tentage.
Much better, right? Now let's switch. Let's mute the top and listen to the bottom.
And they just tried to sort of run a disaster and observe what was going on, learn from the experience.
Okay, so we clearly have identified which track to use, the top one. Now, here's the problem. This track is really great. This track sounds like garbage. If we forget to do this and we play them both at the same time,
A simulated disaster. They had a bunch of people in refugee.
you might as well just be using the garbage track, right? So that's why it's so important to identify which track you need and unlink, get rid of the bad track, and now
They did a simulated disaster. They had a bunch of people in refugee tentage, and they just tried.
okay, so that's just an example of why you want to identify which track has the microphone on it and only use that one, not the other track. Okay, now speaking of microphones, when we're recording dialogue scenes like this, actually when we're recording any scene, we generally have one microphone. And you're going to check out a microphone eventually from the school, and you'll learn how to do this yourself. But what you need to know right now is that in this scene right here is Albertina, Deborah's off screen. The microphone is just right here pointing at Albertina and recording her audio, and she sounds great. Let's listen.
Don't be so nervous. It's not your fault. Buckle your socks.
Now, Deborah is off camera and the microphone isn't picking her up as cleanly. So listen.
But you know our director, Daniel, he wants us to stay late and rehearse that one scene.
But let's say for whatever reason, some creative reason, we want to see Albertina while we hear Deborah. So we don't want to see who's delivering the lines. And so I want to use this.
Director, Daniel, he wants us to stay late and rehearse that one scene.
But this audio is so poor, I can't use it from Deborah. So what I need to do is I need to go find Deborah when she is on camera and the microphone is pointing at her.
Our director, he wants us to stay late and rehearse that one.
And I need to use the audio from this in place of this. So again, I'm going to unlink.
But you know our director, Daniel, he wants us to stay late and rehearse that one scene. All right, Deb.
Okay, and I'm going to trim this just before Albertina speaks. Now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to just get rid of the video and drag this over here. And let's see.
Our director, he wants us to stay late and rehearse that one scene. All right, Deborah, don't be so nervous.
Okay, that's how you would do it. Now, yeah, this Deborah has that funny, like, squeaky microphone problem, so we probably have to pick a different one. But for our examples, you get the idea. This is using an on microphone line for Deborah rather than the existing audio that was underneath here. And this is important to do in situations like this. Okay, another audio editing thing that you need to know about is room tone. Now, what is room tone? Room tone is something that we'll talk again about when you have the microphones and you're recording audio, because it's something you do in recording when you're shooting the video. Room tone is just the sound of the empty room silent. And when you're shooting a movie, you make sure, in addition to getting all the takes of all this great stuff with the actors, you make sure before everyone leaves, before you turn out the lights, to just hold the microphone up in the room and say, okay, everybody silent for 60 seconds. We're going to record room tone. You hit record and you record it. Because room tone can be very important to you in editing when you need to fill in gaps. Now let's say, for example, here, instead of hearing Deborah, let's say we wanted to just have a pause where Albertina is looking. Like, let's say it would be after her shaking her head. That wouldn't, like right here. So let's say for whatever reason,
All right, Deborah.
we want there to be silence there. But what you've already noticed is there's a difference between the silence that's generated from no audio track and recorded silence. You can't leave this in the cut.
All right, Deborah.
Because you can hear the distinct difference between the way the room sounded here and total silence. So room tone, we need room tone to stick in there. Now, I did not provide us with room tone for this, but I bet if I go to the banana shot, I bet I can find some room tone and just steal it. That wasn't intentionally for room tone. So I'm going to look here for some silence, and here's a little trick you can do. When you have clips, the display mode is almost always set to video because that's what you want to see. But you can, if you right-click and go down here to display mode, you can switch it to actually showing you the waveform of this clip. So when I look at the waveform, I can see, oh, this track has no audio. This track has the audio. There's the banana falling. And I can see clearly, aha, there's some nice room tone. And I'm going to go in, out. There's some nice, clean, silent room tone. Let's listen to it. Okay, it's kind of a hum, but that's what the way the room sounded. So now what I can do is I can grab just this audio icon, drag it down here, stick it in there, and let's see.
All right, Deborah.
And let me get rid of this track, which I don't need, and then I'm going to add a little transition there to see if I can smooth out that hum.
All right, Deborah. Don't be...
And then I'm going to lower the volume just a little bit.
All right, Deborah. Don't be...
There.
All right, Deborah.
That's what room tone is used for. So in your editing, if you ever find yourself with some gaps, you can't leave those gaps. You need to fill it in with room tone. And when you're recording your own films, you need to remember to record this room tone to help you out in the edit room.